I think it's one of the best feelings when you have absolutely no expectations of the book. You don't even know what you're getting yourself into, and it becomes a very easy 5 star for you, and you cannot stop raving about it. And the book that I'm talking about is Boudicca's Daughter by Elodie Harper. Boudicca's Daughter is a historical fiction book that came out on September 2nd this year and is by author Elodie Harper. And Elodie Harper is quite well known for her trilogy Wolf's Den, which is also a piece of historical fiction and has been very highly rated. And this truly was an absolute surprise of a book. I didn't really know what I'm getting myself into. I went to the author event by Elodie Harper. She was visiting Cambridge and she was holding an author talk here in Waterstones. And I have heard of Wolves Den a couple of times. I have heard the name Elodie Harper, and I had the time. I wasn't busy on that evening, so I was more than happy to go and listen to her talk live about her book and sort of get to know her as an author. And she is such an enjoyable person to listen to. She's very smart. She is very passionate about her writing. She's very passionate about the historical figures that she's covering in her books, and she's very passionate to write their story from a slightly different perspective. And I think Boudicca's Daughter is the best example of that. Now, history was not my strong subject at school. I had good grades because I have good memory, but unfortunately, I just never gained that passion and interest for any historical era or figure or an event, so I was never actively seeking out historical fiction as a genre. And to be quite honest with you, historical fiction has always intimidated me just a little bit because I don't know history that well and I don't know historical facts that well. I always saw historical fiction as a pretty heavy genre. Historical fiction books tend to be quite chunky and they tend to be quite heavy on facts and quite heavy on the history. So I always felt like without knowing the history, I wouldn't really understand the book. And I was so happy to find out that Boudicca's Daughter was definitely, absolutely not an example of that. It tells the story of Boudicca's daughter, as I'm sure you have guessed by the title, and Boudicca was a queen of the Iceni tribe of Britain. Boudicca became well known for her revenge campaign against Romans after Roman soldiers raped her 2 daughters and flogged Boudicca herself. And the story that we read in this book is mostly the events that happened after Boudicca herself has died and what happens to one of her daughters. And you truly see the story from a completely different perspective. There's not a lot of historical facts about her daughters in general. We know that there were 2 of them. We don't know their names. We don't know what happened to them after Boudicca herself committed suicide. So Elodie Harper writes the story from one of the daughters, and the way that she shows sort of the aftermath of Boudicca's revenge and the aftermath of Boudicca's actions is truly heartbreaking and really interesting to read. It made me really stop and think of what can be justified, what is just when it comes to revenge, what is just when it comes to protecting your family and protecting the honor of your daughters and protecting the honor of your family. And I think in many ways this was probably the best way to tell Boudicca's story, and it truly made me feel for Boudicca herself and for her daughters, and it made me more than interested in the actual historical facts. The writing of this book is absolutely beautiful. I was a little bit intimidated by it. I thought it would be harder to read than it is, considering how tragic the events are. But even though you grasp the tragedy, you understand the implications of the actions, and you understand how much this family has been hurt by the actions of Romans, it still has a very nice flow to it, and it's still relatively easy and quick to read. And by the end of this book, I was so passionately rooting for Boudicca. It was heartbreaking to read about everything that was happening with her and everything that happened to her family and the grief that she was feeling and the powerful sense of revenge and wanting to retake the power that was taken away from her. It was just so beautifully written, and I do truly from the bottom of my heart recommend you read this book, whether you like historical fiction or not, whether you know anything about Boudicca or not. Unfortunately, I didn't, and I felt a little bit left out in that. I fell in love with this book, and it's a very easy 5 star for me. And now, after finishing Boudicca's Daughter and after loving it as much as I did, I am so excited to pick up Wolf's Den and read that trilogy. I know it's fairly highly rated, and I've heard really good things about it. I really enjoyed Elodie Harper's writing, and I think that would be the same in Wolf's Den, so I'm really looking forward to reading that. And if you have read Boudicca's Daughter or if you have read Fool's Den, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of either. I would really love to have a chat about it. And if you haven't, and if you're considering, I do recommend that you pick up this book. I don't think you will be disappointed. And thank you very much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!